Good morning. Good morning. We are here today live with Amber Peterson talking about rethinking leadership and transforming visions into strategies and actions. Good morning, Amber. How are you today?
Hi, good morning, Dr. Fowler. I'm doing well. Thank you. Thank you.
Listen, I know that your name came up when I was discussing topics on leadership and how today's workforce um, are different than the workforce landscape a few years ago, back beginning in 2016. So before we go there, just tell me about yourself and share with the listeners and our viewers what you would like them to know about you before we jump in here.
Okay. Good afternoon to all. Good morning to some. Thank you again, Dr. Fowler, for allowing me to come on and share some of my ideas and thoughts. Just a little bit about me. I am a military brat. So
Ah,
my father was in the Army, and he was in the Army for about 22 years. So
yes.
yeah, so we moved about every 4 years or so. I currently do cybersecurity work for Department of Energy, but before that, I worked with the military, with the DoD, for about 12 years total. I did about a year and so contracting. After
Okay.
that, I did about 10 years federal service.
So you're a military brat. So we have that in common where I served 32 years in the military,
Wow.
um, traveling around, and it certainly exposes you to different cultures,
Yeah.
different work environments. And so it's actually a great learning opportunity to be able to travel around and see. I was born in Portsmouth, Virginia, raised in New York, another country, a state of diversity. And I learned a lot there that I believe prepared me for when I went into the military because that's where I enlisted at. But I also know that when it came to joining the military, I had no idea what right looked like when it came to leadership. No creative ideas to add, except I just brought me to the table,
Mhm. Yeah.
and my experiences to the table. So one of the things that we recognize if you continue to study, because I discovered a lot about leadership, and I did so because everything I heard and everything I was experiencing left a lot to be answered and asked. So, and one thing I discovered that as of 2016, it was noted and stated that the majority of the workforce for the next 10 years the next 14 years would be 2030
Yeah.
would consist of changing dynamics of baby boomers exiting
Hmm.
and millennials coming in. And with that thought in mind, my biggest question I had to ask myself as a leader is what could we as leaders or organizations do to equip or invest in the next generation?
Okay. For me personally, what I have experienced and what I would like to see is training. Training, making sure that myself coming into the organization as a younger member of the organization knows about the organization, details about that. That's one thing that I have noticed is sometimes organizations assume you know what they do,
Mhm.
and the ins and outs of it. So having that training for both at the organizational level as well as just just good leadership type of training, making sure that me coming in, the vision that I have matches with the vision of the organization and matches with where they want to go. So that way I can increase my knowledge, increase my leadership skills and things like that that can benefit not only myself but also where I'm working.
Well, you talk about training, and I think of leadership development.
Yeah.
You know, our leadership development is intended to what? To grow new leaders and to cultivate new leadership, and to close the gap in leadership, right? So that we're not repeating the same things that were not effective. You have to look at it and take an assessment. So the question I have is, very rarely do organizations consider the type of leadership style when they are looking at leadership development, you know? So
Mhm.
we take the tool off the shelf every, 6 months or 12 months, and we start making sure that the next group of leaders are
Yes.
dotting the I and crossing the T, right?
Mhm.
And now we are faced not only with the changing landscape in the workforce, but we're also looking at working in a digital world now, right? In a
Yeah.
virtual world. So, what does the leadership development look like now? What is it that leaders, that we ourselves and you,
Mhm.
you're a millennium, so that was the one reason why I wanted to
Okay.
talk to you, because I
Uh-huh.
needed to get it straight from the source. You know what I mean? We can
Okay.
read all day long, but I
Mhm.
wanted to talk about your experience. And so, when it comes to leadership development, you like training. Training is requirement. That's one of the most spoke about aspect of leadership when it comes to rethinking leadership. So,
Mhm.
what can we do differently? What can organizations do differently in today's climate,
Okay.
in the digital world, based on your background?
Mhm.
Do differently to enhance moving forward? And how can you and those in digital industry help shape what that looks like?
Okay. One thing is computer-based training. I know working in different organizations, I know specifically my experience in DoD, people like the face-to-face. They like to see you, they like to interact. But in today's world, especially with the coronavirus and other things that may happen that keep us away from each other, from connecting with that physical, having computer-based training. One thing in particular in this day and age that I've noticed, especially with social media and things like that, is a lot of times you have organizations that do not use those tools as far as social media to connect with the younger personnel and to connect more so with the resources that we're using. So
Uh-huh.
computer-based, social media, even just something as a leader reaching out to you via text messaging, letting you know, hey, we have this training available, or we have that available. Check it out on YouTube, or certain tools that may be available. Just throughout our everyday life. So that's one thing there, and as well as the training that I mentioned too is also communication training. Like I know, for instance, although I was born in the 80s, I like to say that I use both. I like to both talk on the phone and text, but I know people who were born more so in the 90s, in the mid 90s, who are more adverse to talking. And so they rather just text, and having that type of training as well, communication, public speaking, just briefing, something as simple as briefing your leadership on a slide deck that you did is something that can also help.
Well, I'm shaking my head and smiling and laughing at the same time because I'm thinking about how DOD, we have to put our phones away,
Yes,
and so
yes.
we no longer have access to be able to text. But I think it's a great idea. I think
Mhm.
it's a great idea in regards to I'm walking down the hall with my phone now in the organization, and I'm
Uh-huh.
getting a text,
Yes,
versus versus having to be at my desk and check my email
yes.
or download, because again, I can't even download an app to my phone. Whereas we communicate, we got so many apps today where we're communicating. There's different platforms, and so yes, I look at today's environment. I go, not only are we going digital or are in the midst of digital workforce,
Mhm.
but now we got a workforce that is like yes, yes, for the wrong reasons that we hear. The point is that we want to not be reactive to what
Yes.
it's like. So I'm just trying to, the reason I was moved and inspired to start this platform on Rethinking Leadership is not because I've studied leadership and worked in it, but because I think that as we go forward, we're
Mhm.
going to have to look at what the criteria are for leadership development, right?
Mhm.
We're going to have to look at what that training looks like, and how can, what the leaders need to do first to help shape how they go forward and how they're leading. Because I believe in giving while leading, growing other people while leading. It's not
Yeah.
about our struggles, it's really about handing off to the next generation what would serve them best, and then they can build on that or they can modify that. So you talked about training and you talked about being able to communicate. when I look at recruiting and retaining, which is one of the greatest challenges for the government and probably private organizations as well, is recruiting and training new workforce.
Yes.
And they've been studying that. They were mandated to do that. I think it was early in 2000. And one of the things that they failed to do, is said in the reports, is that they failed to look at sustaining good workforce,
Yeah.
and sustaining the skills required that they needed going forward while they were doing this downsizing. They were downsizing, and downsizing, they failed to consider sustainability, right? So there you have this gap. And so that is why I thought it was great to talk about this. And the reason I was excited when your name came up about recommending to have a session with is because the millenniums look at the fact that they're shaped by what events or life experiences have impacted them. Their value system is different. And so your name came up. I was jumping for joy because they said, yes, when it comes to millenniums not hesitating to leave their current organization and going to another organization, your name, like for the poster child, Amber Peterson, because she does not hesitate to shift locations. So I have to ask you, what shaped you? What influences your value system that gives you permission to say, oh, it's okay for me to leave, considering the leadership and the risk in front of us, right?
Yes.
What gave you permission to be able to say, I'm out of here, or this is not for me?
Okay. Yes. I would say just my family for one. I would say, having that strong family members who would come to me, especially my father or my mother, to say, look, you have a lot to offer. And this organization may not take everything that you have to offer and use it to its best ability. And then also I would say throughout the years, there's been so much going on in the world, just growing up throughout the 90s, throughout the 2000s of, just banks and then you have 9/11. And then you have so many things happening as far as terrorist attacks or just issues that you're having socially as far as job loss and not being able to find a position as readily available as maybe you could have in the past. And then you have just so many factors coming at you. I feel this day and age as a millennial, I feel like there's so many aspects that you face every day, whether it's social, economic issues, or rather it's just day-to-day racial issues that you face, or just day-to-day issues, period. Just trying to make it work. And so for me, the one thing that just stuck with me is both that foundation I had growing up and knowing my knowledge and knowing what the Lord has blessed me with and just what the things that I have. Yes. And then just knowing that one organization may not be able to actually provide the things that you need. And having the faith and also having the strength to say, okay, things may not be better where I leave and go to, or they might not have what I need either, but at the same time to just take that step forward and to move forward. Because I truly believe that everyone has the skill sets to do the position that they're born to be in. And so it's just acknowledging that and having the strength to move on and say, okay, this place might not just be the best place for me at this moment.
That is so important because we would go into, we come from I come from a generation where, yes, having a government job was the most talked about thing to do. And yet, and I was like, had to educate myself on how to make that transition, asking questions. Like there was no way to figure out, well, how do I get this government job and what does this application look like? And then I'll be the first to tell you, once I got in, I got out. And I say that, not for any bad reason whatsoever, but having to know yourself,
Yeah.
I grew up in a generation that was shaped with the civil rights movement. Um, where Martin Luther King was murdered, and really John F. Kennedy, and so I was very conscious of who I was,
Yeah.
That didn't make it easy for those who had to lead and manage me, though, because um, when we talk about social location, meaning I bring to me those things that influence my value system, just like the leaders who are leading me bring to the table what shaped them.
Yeah.
So I think when we are talking about people, we're really talking about the holistic person, and I don't recall having those types of conversations with those who were leading me at the time. It was more bottom line driven. It was more goal driven. And it's okay to have goals to set milestones with.
Yeah.
But when you talk about people, there's more to it. I remember when 9/11 happened. The one thing that resonated with me, and I was in the military again at that time, traveling from New York to California. I was in the Air Force Reserve at that time, with 10 to 12 years behind me, I believe it was, maybe more, in the military. And the one conversation that took place was how people had decided, as a result of 9/11, the event that was shaping their life, was they were taking fewer jobs or taking a job close. There were more people taking jobs closer to home to spend more time with family, that were cut back on the hours they spent on the road commuting. And I know I was commuting to work when I was in California, back and forth from Sacramento to Travis. And I totally understand that. I was actually commuting from New York to California.
Wow.
The recruiters would always use me as the poster child for what it's like to be able to be committed and serve, and how you can pick your assignments. But that was then.
Yeah.
So now we're talking about events that shape us now. And I know that we have to really be methodical as an organization and as leaders, what it is that we're bringing to the table to help shape the future. What the criteria training going to look like? Are we making the adjustment now? Right? You talked about faith. Now, you don't have to know every answer, but you do have to be wise enough to know that we are not going to stay where we are. Right? Wise enough to know that we're never going back to where it was, the way it was. There is no going back. Everything normal is in front of us. And what role do we as leaders play in that? And so I think it's great that we can be able to have conversations with diversity in the workplace. What does that look like when it comes to gender in the workplace? I think about respectability politics, where we affirm women in leadership roles, could be leadership roles, but what are we doing to facilitate that? What are we doing to eliminate the dual standard process when it comes to my male counterpart? So I have to ask you, what does it mean, or describe to us what it looks like or to mean to be a woman in technology, and then a Black woman at that in this day?
Okay. Well, it is changing. So I'll put that out first and foremost. Is that the demographic of information technology and cybersecurity is changing. So you're having more women, you're having more Black women, more people of color who are coming into the field. But that doesn't take away that still, especially a Black woman, you may be the only Black woman sitting at that table of 15. And so that's something that I had to work through throughout my career. One thing I definitely had to keep affirming myself is that I do belong to be here. Yes. And so
I do belong to be here.
Absolutely, because I feel like in in this field, just on the base alone that technology is always changing. You may wake up tomorrow and there's something brand new out there. And there's certain environments where they want you to know it like that. If you get in there, they want you to brief them. And sometimes you may not have all the answers. And especially, there's one thing that the imposter syndrome is something that I had for a long time. And something that I still struggle with from day to day. The imposter syndrome is something that I've had to deal with. Is feeling for me as though, do I belong to be here? Do I know what I'm talking about? How did I get here? Was it just luck? Am I capable? But I know for myself, with the knowledge that I have, from the background that I have, it's just something that I feel like as Black women, for myself, is something I had to keep reaffirming. Is that I do know what I'm talking about. I may be the only woman in here, and I may be the only African American in here, but I know what I'm talking about. So, and then on top of that, you do have the generational gaps, especially in government. There's more people who've been in there for years, and there's more people who feel like it should stay that way, and this is how it's always been. And so, having that new idea, that new position, is sometimes a struggle on top of everything else. So, so I would say now in this day and age, it is changing. But one thing that I will just continue to say is just have the belief in yourself, have the faith in yourself that you are not put here by mistake, and that you do know what you are talking about. You do know what it means to have that position and what it takes to thrive in that position.
Wow. I don't know everything. No, I don't. And that right there, it jumps out at me, where you go in and we are trying to, when we talk about respectability politics, look this way, do it that way, you know?
Yes.
And we say innovation, but then we don't really invite innovation and make room for it. It became a trigger word, you know? My innovation didn't look like your innovation, you know? It is amazing how we did not have those upfront conversations without feeling like we were being challenged as leaders, you know, or holding one another accountable. And that's why I think it's critical right now that we have these conversations today, because I come to the table with all who I am.
Yeah.
And I bring my faith, right? And that is because I may not know the answer right now.
Yes.
But give me a day, give me a night.
Yes.
You know, I love to read, I love to do research, and I love to be able to help shape a new normal. If that looks like a new matrix for leadership development, what does the competencies look like? And so we have to be intentional, I believe, when we have these discussions today. Like, we're talking about rethinking leadership now as though we actually thought about it before, right? I laugh about that because I feel like we stumbled into leadership. I felt like it was part of the leadership development plan, you know? And so my call today is to the new generation that's come up, or the current generation of millennials, is to create your own leadership development plan. You know what it is that you're seeking. You know what your drive is about. And again, you come to the table with all that you are. Your faith, your belief, your value system, what helps shape you. No one can change that, you know? We come who we are, and that everyone brings something to the table. And there's going to come a time where you may not have a seat at the table, and that's okay. But I jumped and shouted when I heard somebody say, I may not, I don't even have to bring a chair to the table. I just need to create my own table. You know? And I think this is a great opportunity for us to be able to get something new started, and on our faith, to be able to look at what God has given us as our gifts, you know, and be confident in what that is. You know, you don't have to be absolute. Matter of fact, there's nothing, no one that is absolute, right? There's no one. When we talk about the workforce. And so I'm still getting through the book, reading from this location, you know, where it talks about the interpreter of one aspect of it is those who interpret the Bible or theology do so from their place of location, social location, be it gender, be it events, you know, and I think that that says a lot. And so again, I'm still getting through the book of called Reading from This Place. What books have you read or reading that help shape your decisions for career choice as well as for whether I stay or I go from this organization.
Okay. Okay. Yes. Definitely. So, the one that I am listening to now, I actually, Audible is a wonderful tool because I'm moving
Okay.
and I'm sleeping all over the place. So I usually, listen to it while I'm driving and things like that. But one book definitely is Small Acts of Leadership. Is it's not
Small
a heavy
acts of
book.
leadership. Okay.
Yes, yes, and it's not a heavy book. It's not throwing things and constant information, but it is just giving quick notes as far as dealing with fear, dealing with confidence, dealing with competence, and dealing with with just moving forward in your career and those things that may cause trepidation or may cause you to pause and think, well, maybe this isn't the right thing. It's a book that highly encourages you to keep moving forward and to keep pushing for those leadership positions. And so they just give quick notes, guidelines, I would say, of things to just to know within yourself, to follow up with as you move forward in your leadership
Okay.
in the organization.
I believe that is, I can see how that influences you into how you made your decision regarding leadership. Before we go, I want you to share just a little bit about your voluntary. You were working the other day when I called you, when we connected. You were setting up training for, was it the senior community?
It's both for it's basically open for everyone. It's an organization called Computer Core. It's for anyone who is looking to advance their basic computing. We do have some senior citizens that are in there. We also have some newly arrived American citizens who are trying to enhance their computer skills and to reach out in the job market. So it's a great organization. They teach things from basic computer to Excel to PowerPoint to all the Microsoft Office suite, as well as they offer career training. So the classes that I help with is one of them is a career development. So
Okay.
it starts with the basics of finding out what careers are best for you. You learn your work style, you learn how to write a resume, cover letter, things like that. But the classes vary. They even have on this semester, I'm not helping with this class, but they even have something for basic coding. If you're wanting to try to get out there and learn Java or C# or any other coding, they have a basic coding class for that.
Wow, I think that's excellent in regards to the fact that we do have to stay in a learning environment and in a learning mode. So
Yeah.
this is a great opportunity for people to reinvest in themselves as well as invest in others, share what you have with others. So when it comes to rethinking leadership, we're not just talking about one aspect of leadership. We're talking about a holistic approach where you consider the person, you consider those what they bring to the table, so that you're on the same sheet of music per se when it comes to what really matters today. So we consider who we are as a person, we consider our background, we consider today's climate. We want to be able to shape going forward. And so I encourage everyone who is in a leadership role or becoming in a leadership role is to be mindful and thoughtful of the holistic approach to leadership. So again, I want to thank you, Ms. Peterson, for all that you do. I was excited to get it straight from your mouth in regards to how you make decisions, and walking on your faith. And so when it comes to rethinking leadership, you have contributed greatly to this audience of listeners. And so for that, I say thank you. And I look forward to us meeting again when we are able to collaborate as a team of leaders.
Yes.
What I'm looking forward to down the road. And when my book come out on rethinking leadership, I certainly want to be able to have you as a part of that discussion.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you again for having me.
Absolutely. Blessings.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.